The next speaker we have, after he was with us last year, I had the privilege of running into him at a restaurant in downtown. He said, "Steve, I really had a good time up there. I hope I get to come back again." And that's the general consensus with our elected officials throughout West Virginia. They love Boise State. They love you guys. They appreciate having the opportunity to come and speak to you. And they generally will call and ask me, "When can I come up?" Let's listen up, guys. So I'm privileged to introduce to you today West Virginia's Attorney General, Patrick Morrisey. He was elected Attorney General for the state of West Virginia on November 6, 2012, and was sworn into office January 14, 2013. He is the first Republican to serve as Attorney General of West Virginia since 1933, and as a resident of Harpers Ferry, he's also the first Attorney General from Jefferson County, West Virginia, in the state's history. He's been in practice since 1992 and has worked on many high-profile healthcare matters prior to serving as Attorney General, and possesses a broad array of experience in regulatory issues, Medicare, Medicaid, policy, fraud, and abuse investigations, legislative matters, strategic counseling, and legal and policy challenges to federal statutes and regulations. In addition to his healthcare experience, he's handled administrative law, election law, public policy, and several criminal defense matters during his 21-year legal career. They can say this gentleman knows a little bit about what he's doing. He's the product of a working-class family. He's licensed to practice law in West Virginia, Pennsylvania, New Jersey, and the District of Columbia. Please make welcome a new friend, American Legion Mountaineer, Boise State, your Attorney General, Patrick Morrisey.
Very much for that introduction, and it really is a pleasure to be back here at Boise State this year. When I ran into Steve, I really did have this incredible feeling about my experience here last year. I think it's just such a wonderful opportunity to take part in this incredible institution. Now, before I get started here today, I'd just like to take a moment to reflect on the fact that today's an important day for you. You have new officers that you're going to get sworn in at about 2:30. So I'd like to just ensure that we recognize those individuals. Would every one of the officers who's been elected please stand? I want to congratulate you. And in particular, I want to congratulate your governor, Dante McCarroll. Interestingly, he's from Jefferson County, so I have to give a shout out to the hometown bowl. So thank you. And it would be remiss of me not to congratulate Mitchell Winky. Mitchell, would you please stand up? Our new Attorney General. No offense, Governor, but I'm a little impartial to the Attorney General. All right. So, as you guys know, holding office on any level is an undertaking unlike any other. You take your ideals, your energy, your ingenuity, and you invest that into the lives of people who you're trying to help improve, the lives of the people you represent. You expose yourself to the possibility of scrutiny. You work hard. You stand for principle while still trying to compromise to advance the common good. So let me say that I appreciate the hard work and your adherence to principles and the effort that you're putting in this week. But some of the principles that you're learning here today, they're not limited to just politicians or to public officials. These are skills and qualities that you're going to be able to apply throughout the rest of your lives in your future endeavors. You're the standard bearer of your generation, and all of you will lead in one way or another. Now, as members of Mountaineers Boise State, you represent some of the best students our state has to offer, and I want to thank you for participating here today. Now, let's start off by just taking a little poll here. Just by a show of hands, how many people plan on going to college here in West Virginia? That's a pretty good number. Let me ask you another question. How many people here plan to stay in West Virginia for the long run? Okay. Now I noticed that there was a difference between the first show of hands and the second show of hands. And I can understand some of the reasons why. One of the main challenges facing our state has been providing high school and college graduates with an opportunity to stay and work in West Virginia if they want to. Some students have found it very difficult to find work coming out of school. And sometimes this has created a mass exodus. Just as you saw with the show of hands, a lot of people have thought there are better economic opportunities in other states. Of course, we can't have that kind of dynamic continue if we want our state to prosper. Because we need your ideas, your energy, and your ingenuity to propel our state forward. Now, let's be clear, our state does have some challenges. We all know about them. We're still a very poor state. If you look at some of the most core economic indicators, we have some of the lowest income rates in the country. Wealth creation is at a low rate. Our educational attainment levels need to rise dramatically. So we do have some challenges that we acknowledge and that we need to improve upon. Having said that, the news in West Virginia isn't all bad. In fact, we have incredible assets here in our state that I want everyone to focus on. We have a wealth of opportunity to reach the highest points in our country. We can start to move up in that economic ladder from 50 to 40 to 30 to 20 with the right amount of energy. Let's take a couple examples. We have a chance to succeed right now because currently our workforce rates, our income rates, are competitive with a lot of other states. Literally, we have the ability to lure jobs in because we can do things faster and cheaper than many other states. We're also the third largest producer of energy in the United States. And that's critical. We have an opportunity to really be a national and an international leader because of our coal and oil and natural gas resources. That will create a lot of opportunities for many people here in this room. And don't let anyone tell you that the energy opportunities in West Virginia will be going away. We will fight to preserve our energy resources in the state and try to do our best to ensure that there are jobs available for you when you graduate. But we also have other advantages. Think for a moment about where West Virginia is located. West Virginia is literally 10 hours away from approximately 180 million people. That provides an incredible opportunity to sell our goods and services to other people around the country. That's an asset. When you combine all of those attributes, West Virginia clearly has an opportunity to really soar and has a very bright future ahead of it. Now, one of the initiatives that our office has been focusing on is to how to promote job growth in our state. And once again, we do this because we want future generations to have the ability to stay here in West Virginia. We also don't want you to have to leave West Virginia to find work. And if my tenure as Attorney General is successful, I'm going to start seeing fewer and fewer differences between the answers to the first question and the second question. That more and more people think that there are going to be economic opportunities in front of them in future years. Now, a lot of you will say, well, you're thinking, what on earth does the Attorney General have to do with economic growth, right? You may ask that question. You may think of the Attorney General as the chief legal officer of the state. What do economics have to do with it? You may also ask yourself, what does the Attorney General even do? What I'd like to do is take just a couple minutes and talk a little bit about what we do, and also talk about some of the ways we can help expand economic growth in our state. So when you think of the Attorney General's office, in its most basic terms, we function as the law firm for the state of West Virginia. We represent state offices and agencies in legal matters. On a regular basis, we do legal work for over 60 different state agencies and boards. We also represent state citizens as a whole, We don't represent individual citizens, but we represent the state as a whole, and we're involved in many matters speaking out on their behalf. We represent the state's interest on criminal matters before the West Virginia Supreme Court to ensure that justice is done. Now, my job also as Attorney General is to speak for the state's legal interest, to ensure that there's some consistency in how the rule of law is applied throughout the state. We provide counsel to agencies, and we fight every day to protect West Virginia interests from federal overreach and from consumer fraud violations. We also enforce our civil rights laws and handle a whole variety of different legal issues facing the state. To the extent that you ever hear of a legal issue in the state of West Virginia involving the state government, we're very likely involved in it. Now, with respect to economics, our office can play a very significant role in bringing jobs back to West Virginia. How do we do that? Well, frequently by bringing clarity to the law. Let me ask you guys a question. How many people here think the law can be ambiguous? Right? Well, the law certainly can be ambiguous, but where your Attorney General comes into play is that I can issue legal opinions that clarify ambiguities in the law to provide more certainty to consumers and sometimes to regulated businesses. That's certainly very, very important. We can also counsel state agency clients on different matters of law. And frequently, we can provide counsel to allow them to adhere to the law's requirements in a less burdensome way. We can, of course, also work with the governor and with the legislature to draft legislation the right way to help propel our state forward. And of course, we also are in charge of litigation in our state. We can join as a party to lawsuits in instances of federal overreach. If we feel the federal government's overstepping its bounds, quite frankly, similar to the EPA proposed rule that just came out last week, we could step in and take matters to protect our state's sovereignty. So we have the ability to file lawsuits, file briefs, and any other legal documents that West Virginia needs to protect its sovereignty. We also are in a position to ensure that we take a stand for West Virginia's rights and interests to ensure that they're always protected. Now, as some of you may know, our office has taken a stand in a number of areas to fight back against rules and policies that have been put forth by the federal government. We filed what we call these friend of the court briefs with the Supreme Court to make sure that West Virginia's legal interests are heard. These briefs are one of the ways we ensure that our voice is heard at the highest levels of government. The reason why we filed these briefs, it goes back to what we talked about at the beginning. We want to ensure that we adhere to the rule of law, but we also protect economic opportunities for those who are going to be here in the future. So we try to protect our coal miners, our manufacturers, and our small businesses alike. Everyone deserves the protection of the rule of law. Now, as you all know, our state's motto, Mountaineer sempre liberi, Mountaineers are always free. Well, that's something I think about every day when I'm in the office. And as Mountaineers, we have to be constantly vigilant to ensure that we keep our state free from policies that will have negative outcomes or that would restrict our freedoms. That's something that I hope your Attorney General here today, after he gets sworn in, begins thinking a little bit about. But of course, while the Attorney General and members of the legislature and the governor's office can lay a good foundation for future growth, the real success, the real future of West Virginia lies in your hands, and principally in your hands alone. One of the things that's so encouraging, of course, about coming today is that the American Legion Mountaineers Boys State program has such a long and rich history. It goes all the way back to before World War II. And as I was fond of remembering last year, you have the second longest charter in the country. That's pretty impressive. That's something West Virginia should be very proud of. You've graduated approximately 30,000 people. Now think about that for a minute. You have a lot of brothers and sisters, some who graduated Boys State 37 years ago, some who graduated a year ago, some who graduated 15 years ago. These are going to be brothers and sisters, brothers who you're going to be able to keep relationships with the rest of your life. That certainly is critically important. And so, as you move forward here today, we think it's critical that you stay engaged in public service and think about all the civic-minded activities you can be involved in. Because we're counting on you to be the next wave of a group of achievers that will help move West Virginia forward. Clearly, you are the men of tomorrow. Now, as those men of tomorrow, you're charged with honoring the ideals that you've been exposed to during your time here at Mountaineer Boys State. And I think through the experience that you're getting this week and the hard work that you're doing back home, you're going to be well equipped to contribute to the incredible future of our state. And last, I'd like to leave you on this note. As you know, it's important for you to remain true to your ideals. Why? Because with lessons done, objectives won, good citizens will be. We'll proudly stand in our homeland where Mountaineers are always free. Thank you very much.